are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced and get happy with Dr. Marissa. And this show is about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have shows and topics.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days.
Monday, Tuesday,
Happy days.
Wednesday, Thursday,
Happy days.
Friday, whatever.
Happy days.
What a day. Na, 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 na.
I love you.
I love you too.
Best known as the mom from Happy Days, and she is a delightful 89-year young Marion Ross to my studio. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Dr. Marissa, this is such a treat for me.
Oh.
My goodness, you're a wonderment.
Which is exactly the kind of guest that I like. Those who have gone through life, good and bad, and then taken those experiences to alchemize them into the person they are now and doing good on the planet. I'd like you to welcome Corey Feldman.
If you're grateful for it and you say right away, thank you, God. Oh, my God, that's so beautiful. I'm so blessed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Then guess what? More good things will come to you.
Does this sound familiar at all? She's back again to mark my Cancer Awareness and Prevention Month show. Please welcome Fran Drescher. Hi, Fran.
On and supporting cancer schmance. I really appreciate it.
So what would you say are some of the biggest myths, Fran, that people have about cancer?
Well, I would say that they think that there's a cure for it.
Okay.
Instead of a cause for it.
This is the first call-in show when I get to be Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. And people call in to get their life tires balanced and their critical thinking or their BS, their belief systems, smog checked. And today I am delighted to have Malie calling in from Birmingham, Alabama.
We could go 90 days and end up having terrible sex. And then you say, well, the relationship's not all about sex. Well, if I'm not getting great sex from you, then I'm going to get it from somebody else. Right?
That moose just got put on the table. And I see Josh and Jim.
I have to agree
You're
with Clyde.
both nodding. Ramon's sort of half nodding because his wife's listening. But
I understood what was going to happen if Muhammad Ali's youngest daughter, made public that I was going to become a boxer. So I wanted to make sure this was the path that I wanted to go down.
you are absolutely fabulous, beautiful inside and out. And I'm giving you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award today.
Thank you.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic point.
When I go, I'm gone.
Are you lonely?
No.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be
But
the answer.
I surround myself with people. I mean, I'm always the one cooking for things. Or I'm always the one that decorates first and come to my house. All the orphans that have no place.
I'm going to have no place to go, so I can come over.
Come on over.
And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5. 25 years strong, the station that leaves no listener behind, home to the Asian Oprah. AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumbles, Podchaser, Streaker, Speaker, you name it. I'm there because I want to balance out all the bad news that is so readily available with some good news and good people, good interviews, good topics, and of course, great series. You are tuned into my very popular Thursday series called Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn.
And if you've missed any one of our past shows or my 1,144 shows, please do free subscribe or subscribe now to get a little closer to me and have a little extra time. All of that is available to you now. And we are going to start with breakfast because that's what we get to do every weekday morning with me. I want to do a little weight training. Weight as in wait before you get up and go in that, rushing, pushing vibration. I want you to start with gratitude and appreciation, which will guarantee that things will be sandwiched in the most positive way for the rest of your day. So here we go. What are you grateful for, James Hawthorn?
I had a great catch up with a high school friend of mine, and he's doing some really exciting work. Why, thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. He's doing some really exciting work in the consulting space, helping companies become blue. It's called the Blue certification. And I'm a big proponent of environmentalism, and as an avid scuba diver, that's really near and dear to my heart. And I'm grateful to him because he thought there'd be a great opportunity for me to help him expand his footprint in that space. And I've worked with him before doing other things for his company. So I'm just grateful that he, has kept me on his mind and looked for an opportunity for me to get involved in something that I'm really passionate about. So
awesome. And I am grateful that I am off to, for the first time, the National Association of Broadcasters, could be Academy actually, but it's NAB, it's in Vegas. I'm so excited. My new Friday co-host, I don't know if you knew about this, we're starting a new series called The Review. Get it? Review. So Angel Menchain is my co-host, as well as her two colleagues, Ricky and Eddie, who all of them are affiliated. Our first guest is going to be Carrie Fisher's brother's son. Anyways, you know me and names, but we have great guests on top. She's got the whole year lined up already and getting some great sponsors. So I am grateful. There's three right there. For this chance to go, all the after parties and all that. This is the first time I've been invited there. So I'm grateful and excited. Can you tell?
I absolutely can. You're beaming. Now I have a question for you, though. You have a national gathering of broadcasters. Please tell me that they have a talking stick. Otherwise, I'm imagining everybody broadcasting right
You're
over
right.
each other.
Very good point. Very good point. I can only imagine how difficult it's going to be to get the room to be quiet.
Oh yeah, especially when I start with a keynote speech. It'll take 20 minutes. That's worth the price of admission alone.
Yeah, Jennifer Hudson is going to be there on Tuesday, getting an award. So I don't know if I'm going to get to, I'll wiggle my fingers to see if I'll get a sound bite, but we'll see. And I'm just grateful that I get to go. And I'm sure, welcome back, Troy. He's an avid breakfast consumer, and he will do gratitudes. And of course, he did. I'm just grateful for another day above ground. Wonderful. We're grateful to have you in the Cashew Gallery. And I am grateful for being contacted from London, England by a company called Uptime. And they asked me to be a content creator for them. And we had the call this morning, and it looks like it's a go, and I'm excited about that. They do hacks, this instant society, distilling your message into some points so that people can, not spend a lot of time, which is great. Our instant society. And lucky for you, I have nothing to say, right? Sarcasm is another service I offer. But I was telling Troy, because I've been such a belligerent numbers, you can buy them. The numbers don't mean what people think they mean. And it's another proof that they contacted me from what they've seen. And if you build it, they will come. So for all of you who worry about numbers, don't worry about numbers. Just do what you love to do. And not everybody loves everything. So everybody has a little part of the, everybody has an influence, number one. But if you're as shy as I am and you like being on camera or on whatever platform you are, just be in joy. Be in that high vibrating place. So I'm grateful for being contacted. Go ahead.
I think that's a really important key to happiness that you just touched on right there. Commit to the process. Don't worry about the numbers. The destination is not guaranteed. And a lot of people say, well, why should I commit to a process if I don't know I'm even going to get there, at the end anyway? Because we're so goal oriented. I think it's important to have goals, but yet at the same time, not be attached to them, because the only thing you get every day is the path, the journey that you walk down. So you might as well enjoy that process and be smiling along the way, because that's the only guaranteed thing that you get. And I think that is an important hack to happiness, if you will. And not to skip steps, but when we get to the things that we like about ourselves, the second blissipline of the gratitude breakfast, I guess, one would be is that I have finally learned how to let go of goal attachment. And I like that I am able to enjoy the process and the path. So to get back to my last gratitude, I'm grateful for this stunning weather that we had, because I went for a run yesterday in Santa Monica along the beach. It was postcard day. It was warm, but not too hot. Visibility was stunning. It was just one of those, like, I'm so happy to be here right now doing this. I was running slowly. I'm not nearly in the running shape that I used to be, but instead of beating myself up over it, I was just grateful to be there right now, enjoying a beautiful weather day, doing an activity that I love. So
awesome. And I'll skip to the bottom of the blissipline as well too. What do you like about yourself? 8 things. James already started it off. I'm going to say I appreciate that today is I've been sober for 5,555 days. I thought that was a pretty cool number. So yay to me, and I'll celebrate with some vodka. Just kidding. This is so I you got to anchor me down today. I'm a little bit, but I appreciate that I'm naturally high.
I love that. I like my curiosity, because it always gives me a reason to talk to somebody new, somebody I don't know. And I think they receive me as someone that cares about them. And I do, but a lot of it is fueled by curiosity, really, a genuine curiosity for everything. So I like that about myself. Keeps me engaged with the world around me and out of my own head.
Beautiful. I appreciate that. I also have jumped off that hamster wheel of constantly doing, ending up in do, and instead enjoying the journey and the destination. probably even more so the journey, because as you said, sometimes the destination isn't what is best for you at that time. So my little when I'm on stage and I do this, a lot of people are so goal oriented, they like rush to meet that 88% mark. And then instead of looking at all that you've done and going, yay, you look at the other side. What do I still got to do to get to that mark? I'll celebrate when I get to that mark. And when you get to the 100%, you don't even celebrate because you're on to the next goal and you're back in that 88%. So you're always kind of in this, oh, I got to get it done. And there's no joy and no peace and no, I love my life. So I appreciate that I have figured out, no matter where I am, to turn and look at the side that feels better.
Yes, I love that. I want to go back to that one too. That's such a great point. I like that I try to be helpful to people. And, there's a philosophical argument that if you're somebody that does nice things for people, helps out, some people say that, oh, you just do that because it makes you feel good. So in that way, it's actually a selfish act. Well, you know what? Call me selfish then, because I love actually helping other people because it makes me feel so good. And I like that something that is good for other people makes me feel just as good too. And I find it to be a pretty easy thing if you can look for the win-win situations in life where, oh, this person needs that, they need that, let me put them together and sprinkle a little bit of my gift on top of it. And I think that it's a nice thing to be able to do, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. And I like that I am always looking for ways to do that for other people.
Yeah, I appreciate that I have bucked my family Tao tradition, my mom's maiden name. It's not just my mom, but between the Chinese and the family personality, I have bucked, for the most part, the expectation that if I do something for you, you better do something for me. And that's like such a horrible way, watching my family, my mother's side of the family, just get constantly into battle because of that BS belief system. You owe me. I'm so appreciative that 88% of that is gone. I don't operate that way. There's an expression in a 12-step program called for fun and for free. So if you can do something without the expectation that you're going to get something back, it's that doing something nice without telling anybody about it and things like that. Not my natural, what I grew up with, but to learn that and to try to practice that.
That's such a familiar thing. I think a lot of people deal with that. I know that at times I have, especially if I feel very stressed out or if life has me kind of beaten down on a given week, I tend to lean into that bad habit of, well, I still made time to do this for you and you can't do this for me. And I think that comes from, for me, if it's coming from a place of being stressed out, I think that at its core, it comes from a place of scarcity. It's that scarcity mindset where, you freak out if somebody's not doing that thing for you because you fear that there's not enough abundance for good things to come your way if they don't reciprocate the act or the deed. And I think that's actually a really nice segue to today's topic, because sometimes
before you go there, I just want to get one appreciation here from Troy. I appreciate my childlike ability to be excited by very simple things. And that's a beautiful appreciation. It's a new one. I haven't seen that from you, Troy. If you've just tuned in and you're wondering what's going on in studio today, this is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Oprah. And this is your very special Thursday series called Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn.
And we
Troy,
just finished.
I love that. You said that way more eloquently than I would. I just tell people I'm easily amused. I'm quick to laugh, quick to smile. I have a very simple sense of humor at times. But you know what? I like it because better to be quick to smile than quick to frown. But you said it in a much more eloquent way.
I don't know what I said, but I'll take it. But thank you for joining us for breakfast. This is a good life habit and a discipline for you tonight before you go to bed. Please do appreciate yourself. And if you continue on for the next 28 consecutive days with me, if this is your first time, I promise you will develop a good life habit that sandwiches your day in the most positive way. Thanks for joining us. Taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich, and now we are going to go to the topic of the day that I don't remember who started it, but it's always fun trying to remember. I have great memory. I have really horrible recall. So, but James remembered. I am great. There's one more comment here. Let's also big hand job.
That's very true. That's very true, Troy. Yeah. I wouldn't put that on a t-shirt and wear that around town, you know.
So do you want me to frame you with the promo on the topic?
Sure.
Okay. So, James, if you loved me, you would. And if you really loved me, you wouldn't. And if that is proof that unconditional love maybe is not possible. My ears hurt just writing this, and I've been guilty of saying it too, especially to my kids before I knew better. Today's topic is
unconditional love. Is it even possible? Does it exist? Meaning, is it within our realm, our capabilities as a human being to love in that way?
No.
Does it exist? And if it does, is it even a good or a healthy thing? Let's discuss.
That's our topic for the day. I love it. I love it. And I'll say no right off the bat because I don't think it is possible unless you're like 100% codependent. You will always have, and I try not to use always, but I've not met one human being who has no expectations, which is unconditional love. Conditional love says, I will love you, and I have a certain number of things that you got to do for me. If I go to Troy, his example of 31 years with his wife, Netter, and we had been talking about loyalty and not cheating and betrayal, that is an expectation. If you betray me, that's it. Then they both agree on that. That it's great, and it's still a condition. So that's why I call dogs unconditional dogs, because they are the only thing, in my view, that can truly 100% love unconditionally.
Yes. You know, it's such a funny thing because at first blush, this idea of unconditional love sounds very romantic, and it sounds like it's something aspirational that we should try for. But when you dig a little deeper and you start thinking of certain scenarios and what does that really mean, you know, it might not be the healthiest thing. I think that a lot of people could, if you think of it as a scale of conditional love to unconditional, I think a lot of people could benefit from loving more unconditionally. But to do so in the strictest sense of the word, I think can be quite dangerous and unhealthy, as you mentioned, you know, codependency. On the healthy side, you were talking about giving without a sense of or a need for reciprocity. I think that parlays into loving more unconditionally. You know, when you love somebody, you just do the thing because you love them. And so I think when love can motivate our actions without any need for reciprocity, I think that's a beautiful and healthy thing. So, you know, it's a matter of degree, I think. And it's a matter of where I think it's important for us to take an inventory in our own lives and look at how we love and whether we need to love with some more guardrails up, more conditionally, or whether we need to drop those guardrails and let the love run free a little more.
Yeah, great point. Not black and white. It is on a continuum. Absolutely. If it is 100% unconditional love, that means I can beat you and you'll still love me, right? That's like the extreme of unconditional love, which we're not talking about.
Right.
Right. I do believe that there are some conditions that should be there, which is source, yourself, and then others. So if you love yourself, can you love yourself unconditionally? I think you can. I mean, I never thought about that question until now. Can I love myself unconditionally? And the reason why I'm saying yes, which is kind of mind-blowing because I just said that humans can't do it. But if I look at my life and who I am and where I've come and what that journey's been, I started with a complete conditional love of myself. I could only love myself because I adopted what I grew up with is if you achieved, if you did well, you got A pluses. If you listened to what your parents said, if you followed the 10 Commandments, and if you could do all those things, then you were loved, right? And if you didn't do those things, then you were unloved, which is why I tried to do all those things perfectly, didn't do it. So I was constantly beating myself up. I was constantly what you're saying in your head that you were mentioning before. Now I can say I love myself fully and completely, knowing that I'm not perfect. 88% of the time, I am fabulous, one of a kind, wonderful in all of my quirkiness. 12% of the time, I fork up. I try not to, but I fork up. Do I love myself even when I fork up? I do, because I know that that's who I am. And I'm connected to a source of power that creates the world that we're all, I call it love. We come from love. We're born from love. We return to love, and we try to do our best here in love. And 88% of the time, I think we can. So yeah, I can love myself unconditionally as long as I don't have 100% conditional expectations of myself to be perfect.
Right. So, I mean, there you go. It shows that we are capable of unconditional love. And I think that we can practice that towards other people too, but it doesn't mean it's good for us. I definitely think it's within our capacity. And I think it is administered to others in a similar way as it is, to yourself. And it doesn't mean being delusional. It's also that saying I'm big major.
Oh, sorry. I saw that already. I thought it was a new one.
It's saying, I know I got a lot of problems, but I love myself anyway, or I know I got a lot of things that I need to work on, and it's loving yourself anyway, because it's this understanding that we all do, that everybody's a work in progress till the day that they are 6 feet under. So, I think that it's good to give yourself and others that sort of grace. I think moving towards the unconditional end of that scale is healthy in that regard. When you're loving somebody else, give people grace. Right. Otherwise, they're always going to feel like they're never good enough for you if you're holding them to that same standard, right, that we both had as kids. A+ student, top athlete, listen to your parents, all of that.
Yeah. So I guess what is that word? I disagree, or I corrected. No, there's an expression that I can't remember right now. That I'm going back on what I just said. I think it is possible to love unconditionally if I use that same definition for myself, and I can love people even when they're in their 12%.
Yes. Something that's interesting to me about this topic when I really think about it is I suspect that we all might be lying to ourselves a bit, thinking that we do love more unconditionally than we actually do. And I think it might be fun for us to, another unword, uncover some of the conditions that we are secretly loving with or through. So when we look at it through that lens, maybe we can identify some of those sneaky conditions that we place upon our love, make us all more aware of that. And maybe we can all walk out of here loving a little bit more towards the unconditional side without crossing that unhealthy boundary.
I love it, love it, love it. If you've just tuned in, you're wondering what's going on in studio today, this is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show here on KCAA NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Opera, AM 1050, FM 106.5, the station that leaves no listener behind, and streaming all over the place. iHeartRadio, Spotify, and of course my YouTube TV channel, where if you free subscribe, you will get an alert every weekday morning to tune in. And this is our very special Thursday and extremely good topic today. I mean, they're always good. On my Thursday series called Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn.
And he just gave us a project for the rest, or for the next segment of the show, which I think is fascinating. Unconditional love. Let's put the moose on the table. My Canadian version of talking about the elephants in the room. What are those little conditions maybe we're not conscious of? Could be subconscious, could be implied, could be inferred about how we love. Do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I was in a relationship once where, and this goes back to the topic we were covering a couple of weeks ago, where there was an income disparity, me being on the lower end of it. And I genuinely felt that I would have been loved and accepted more had I been making more money. And I don't think the other person would have admitted that, but I felt that way, And so, I think when we look at conditions, another way to say that is expectations. There's certain things where I think it's good to expect things from your partner. And then there's other expectations that maybe we could do without, depending on, how we frame that.
So I'm going to put a little level disclaimer on this. I don't have an expectation of, I'm going to love you more or less if you're my kid, right? On how much money you make, on my family members even. But it is a condition now that I'm dating and dipping different parts of my body in the dating pool. That's a joke. And
sorry, you got me deep in thought. I'm really
yeah. For a potential mate for the next chapter in my book of romance, yes, it absolutely is a condition. And I know that, right? And it's not something to be proud or ashamed of. It is just a condition with which I know I am placing you on a level that I would see as attractive, right? I don't know, is love attraction? I will love you more. I will be attracted to you more.
Well, I think you're talking about what you need for compatibility. So there's love, but then there's logistics. And I feel like when it comes to the income, that we're talking more about the logistics of compatibility. Now, love is this practice of, I believe it's a practice of doing, things and for people because of the way that they make you feel and how much you like them and value them. And, I think that that's one way in which we show that we love somebody. It's this action. It's an action, not a feeling. And I think it's totally possible to have somebody in your life that you might love to death dearly. You know that because of a huge income disparity, it wouldn't work in a relationship. That's the logistics. But it still might be somebody that you love. You just might have to love them outside of the context of a romantic relationship because of that logistical incompatibility. So not to get too caught up in the semantics and the terms, but if we really want to talk about unconditional love, I think it's important to call out when we're discussing expectations around compatibility logistics and when we're talking about what love really is. And it's important maybe to come up with what that definition is for this conversation. And I'm going to say it's this practice. It's an action. It's the things you do for somebody because of how much you care about them, what they mean to you, etc. And in that regard, you can love somebody like crazy, but still choose not to be in a committed romantic relationship with them.
Case study. You both young, You both are starting your careers. You have some expectation that they will be a breadwinner in the family if they're expecting you to have the babies. And 10 years in, can't not making any more, not trying to have any more, not living up to those expectations. Are you saying that love unconditionally that doesn't apply? Because in my book, even as you're saying, the action part of loving is spending time with someone. So I would say I don't think that I think that that's a realistic expectation for love.
I agree with you on that, but let's dive into that a bit. I mean, I think that if you set up a expectation, right, and I've already placed that sort of thing in the logistics bucket as opposed to love, but if 10 years go by and you both had an agreement and that person is kind of reneging on it in that they're not bringing home the bacon like they said that they would, and 10 years has gone by and they haven't, they're now treating you a bit like a doormat. They're walking over you, and that's not a very loving thing to do. And so similarly, if you feel like they're doing that to you, it's not a very self-loving thing to do to allow that to happen. So now what started as a logistical expectation has now morphed into behaviors on that other person not keeping their end of the bargain. And that's not a very loving thing to do if an agreement was made between two people that are in love. So in that regard, I would say that that's one of those things where no, you have to look at that person's behavior and call it out and say, well, I would like to love you unconditionally, but you're not really trying that hard or putting in the effort, and it's making me feel unloved.
Okay, so money is one. How intimate, how physical, sex-wise, that's another one. And I can just bottom line it by saying every single thing that relationship, when people come to me for relationship coaching, all the big ones, pun intended, are the ones that are threatening unconditional love. These are the conditions that I will love you, and you're not meeting them, right? Sex, money, right? Time. How much time do you spend with me versus your friends at work, all the other ways? How you are as a parent and not just as a mate. So I would say those are like the four top things. Or having a religious kind of conversion and not taking the other person along with you. That's less often, but it does happen.
I think though, I agree with all of those. I think all of those are huge factors. And, those, I think what we're starting to get at is that there can't be unconditional love without a logistical compatibility. Because we all have certain expectations and we know what we need. We need certain things in relationships to be happy, and that's okay. That's part of the human condition. So I think that those needs and those conditions have to be met for unconditional love to even be a possibility. Now that sounds almost paradoxical, but
that's an oxymoron. That's great.
But
you have to meet the conditions to have unconditional love.
The logistical conditions of compatibility. And then the act of love, if we define love as the way you behave towards one another, then it's possible to love each other, more towards that unconditional end of the scale if the logistical expectations are compatible. So you can't have unconditional love without compatibility, I think is what I'm trying to say. So that's like a prerequisite. When you're having a philosophical debate or discussion, you always have to state your premises. Like, well, what are we assuming to be true before we dive in? And I think that one important premise is without compatibility, it's almost a moot point to talk about unconditional love.
But here's the interesting thing. Just as you said at the beginning of the relationship, how many people really have kinds of those discussions where you say, this is the agreement? I look at my marriage, there was no agreement.
Right.
That, so that's another thing, just a little side note that I wanted to kick in there. But I knew I was going to forget the main point I was going to make by doing the side point. But we were talking about, what were we talking about? You were saying the conditions. Oh, yes. So you were saying on the logistical part, and that there are almost preconditions, right? Compatibility conditions. But that's another thing that, you think you're compatible at the beginning because opposites attract. And then with time, those same opposites drive you up the bejesus, because it's like all of a sudden the thing that was cute when you were opposites attracting, like, oh, he's good for me, he's getting me out of the house because I tend to isolate, and it's great that, he's getting me out and he's taking me and doing stuff, and that's great. And then 6 months, 7 months later, it's like, I just want to stay at home, and all he wants to do is go and take me out, and I'm exhausted and I need to stay home. So then that's another condition. I'm not loving you for this very same thing that I loved about you when we were in the first trimester of the relationship.
I mean, unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. And so, until you're very experienced in relationships, I think you have to kind of go into it blindly and see what happens. You go down the path and you hope for the best. And, just if people change, or if your needs change, also part of the human condition. It doesn't necessarily mean that you love them less. It just means that compatibilities have maybe morphed into incompatibilities. And on the flip side of you saying that, it can drive you nuts if, you're too opposite and time goes on. Seinfeld did a great episode where Jerry ends up dating this woman who's exactly like him. And it's going so well for like the first month. And then they start to drive each other nuts. And then Jerry goes, I can't date me, I hate myself. So he learns that he hates himself by dating this woman that's exactly like him. So, I mean, the flip side of the coin can also be completely true, which just goes to show us that we're kind of clueless and hopeless in a cute way. And we just sort of have to kind of stumble into it and do the best we can. But when we're doing that action of love, I think there's something so beautiful about doing it more in that unconditional sort of way. Mm-hmm. Let me give some examples. You've heard about couples that have been separated, and every single day one will write a handwritten letter and send it, things like that are just incredibly thoughtful, show persistence of just commitment and care. Those sorts of actions, it just shows that no matter what, I might not have received a letter from you in 2 weeks, but I love you, and that's never going to change, and you're going to get one from me every damn day. I think things like that are incredibly sweet and amazing. And when you hear those stories, I think that's pretty good.
Watch that D word.
Hopefully is that I don't know.
Yeah, that's on the list.
Situation there.
You've never used it before. So, another tool that I know a couple that they're now divorced, but however, it's a nice tool similar to what you're talking about with the notes. Is there was a journal in the middle of the house, and they would, when they went by, they would write something that they loved about the other person or appreciated about them, or a little love note of that kind. And that, I thought that was a great tool, just to keep it, because we all have a tendency to go negative before we go positive. It's in our genetics, right? In the days of the woolly mammoth, we had to know when something was wrong. So if something, we were focused on the negative, but there's no woolly mammoth. So we have to use our muscle to discipline into positive, not natural. The second point was, I'm good for my first point, and then I forget what the second point was. Oh, sugar mama. But Anyways, you continue and then I'll come to me.
It just occurred to me, think about the wedding vows in sickness and in health, through richer or poorer, right?
I
When you
can't
hear,
stand the till death do us part, by the way. That's
I
just
know,
my
I don't like, I'm not such a big fan of that either because things change. But let's talk about like
no, but it's
sickness and health.
morbid. It's morbid.
Well, I mean, it's really intense. It's some heavy stuff. It's like some Old
Till
Testament
death do
stuff
us
instead of New
that's
Testament.
that I get to look for. I don't know. Anyways, that's just my pet peeve.
But I mean, let's talk, for example, sickness and in health, and not in like maybe the literal sense. Let's say that, she loses her sister, or whoever, your partner loses a sibling in a tragic way, and they go down the spiral of depression, and they can't even get themselves up off the couch, and and it becomes a huge burden. They can't go to work, they lose their job. So now there's sickness and there's for poorer. And, there's an opportunity here for unconditional love to try and help them, support them, bring them out of it. But if a year goes by and they're still not working and they're still horribly depressed and they're not taking any effort to change that, there has to be some limit of I'm not going to go into that black hole and hang out there with you. I'll be at the top and reach my arm down. I'll throw you a rope. I'll throw you a basket. Or whatever you need to get out. I'll give you climbing gloves. But I'm not going to go into that hole with you for the rest of my life. At what point in this scenario, right? Call it a case study. At what point is it okay and not selfish to say, look, I love you to pieces. And because I love you so much, it's killing me to see you a year in completely crippled still, and I've tried everything I can to help you start to help yourself, and I've tried to do the heavy lifting. I've been doing it for a year and I don't mind it, don't resent you for it, happy to do it because I see how much pain you're in, but enough's enough. At what point is it okay to say that just for your own well-being and protection? And at what point is it okay to forgive yourself for saying I have reached the limits of my unconditional love for you, if you're not willing now to start to fight a little harder for your happiness and functionality in this world?
That's a great point. The one that you raised earlier, that 100% unconditional love is not always healthy. If I'm going to completely accept you for you exactly as you are, and you're not loving yourself in your own behavior, I'm enabling you to not love yourself, which is not a good thing for me to do.
No, that's actually not a loving thing either. It's sometimes you have to do a slightly cold thing in the best interest of somebody else's well-being. Otherwise, you're enabling that brokenness that they have just gotten stuck in for a year. And so sometimes a loving action isn't always what you would expect it to be or what it looks like. There is such a thing as tough love, and that can be part of unconditional love, because sometimes the tough love is painful. It's hard to do. But if you really know that that's what that person needs, finding it within yourself to do that thing, it's not just tough on them. It's tough for you too sometimes. To do tough love, especially when you love somebody like crazy.
And I'm going to turn it a little bit at an obtuse angle for me. When I say source or God or whatever you want to on top, and then me, and then you, that's on purpose, because I have to do what I know is best for me, okay, which may not be best for you in the way you're defining it. And I don't necessarily have the right to say to you, you shouldn't be doing this. You should not be grieving past this certain time. I don't have the right. That's your process. However, I know that I am not in a situation where I'm loving myself to always be constantly in a situation where someone is not their best self for me. Therefore, I'm not judging you. You can do whatever you want. But based on what you're doing in my proximity to you, it's not good for me. So I love myself enough to detach and say, I love you, and there's no condition here, right? You do you, right? As much as you do. And it's not even tough love for me because I don't have the right to change you. I do have the right to say, I choose for me to remove myself from this situation that is not good for me. And that shift takes the whole unconditional love for me. It's not about you, it's about me. And that is not a popular message usually, because like you said earlier, selfishness is not a good thing. Well, I think it is. I think that self-love, self-care, self-esteem, self-soothing is the most important thing. Because if you can't do this for yourself, then you are 100% bobbing on someone else's emotions, which is not good for you.
I call it self-full. Like yourself has to be full. If you're going out there unconditionally loving somebody, but your life is an absolute shambles, well, that's codependency. You're filling your bucket by doing all this stuff out there because it's just too darn painful to look within and deal with your own stuff. I think a lot of people will sometimes rush to be selfless because they are not self-full. And so they can stand a little bit of selfish, which is not the right word, but the way that we use it, they could stand to be a little more selfish to fill themselves up. And then they're going to be a better lover. And then that love means something because they're not chasing after filling a void. So I agree with that 100%. And you have to be self-full to love unconditionally in a healthy way. I think that's so important.
Yeah, for sure. And we're getting fingers all over the place, which is wonderful. That's this, not the other finger. We do have a comment from Troy here. Till death do us part implies you have to let go. And I'm not sure I'd be able to. That's a nicer way of seeing it than I was seeing it. Because to me,
I think that's
so
a great
morbid.
I think that's completely valid. And I think that's a really good interpretation right there, Troy, for sure. Speaking of letting go, like you said, you might say to somebody, I still love you, but I can't be in this relationship with you because I can't live in that black hole with you. And that's where I'm going to be if this continues. And that's that's loving somebody from a distance. And so this sounds so paradoxical, but can you unconditionally love somebody from a distance? And I think, sure, you can. It's just you have removed the context of a romantic relationship in the name of self-preservation. But that said, that person, you might think about them every day for the rest of your life to the day that you die, because you love them so dearly. And that action, that history, the years of action of love, you can't shed that. And sometimes I wonder how, when I look at people that were in relationships that were loving at one point in time, how sometimes when I hear them talk about their past relationships, they're so quick to just poo-poo them and say, well, that person was above. And there's so much anger there. And I think about that and I'm like, well, what about all the love too? And sometimes I think it's a burden to carry all that love from past relationships with you in your heart. But at other times, I think that it's the kind of thing that can rescue you from a bad day or from your darkest hours, to go back in there and say, yes, I had this sweet, amazing, loving, connected experience. And I think,
I can do it again. I can do it again. Yeah.
It could be inspirational to carry that love with you from. I don't think it's unhealthy. I think you can let the person go, but it doesn't mean that you have to let that love go. You don't have to let the history and the beauty of that love go.
Yeah.
And it's a burden to carry it with you, but I also think it's a beautiful burden to bear.
Yeah. That is why my model of not blaming people is so important to me, because it is, you're just not a match anymore. That if everyone, whatever relationship you had, it was a great relationship during that time. And there were a lot of benefits from it. And, I say, what did I learn as a result of that relationship? And then usually conflict, right? And then, it's like this angry, oh, you're bad and you died. How dare you do this to me? And da 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 and F you and da 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 da. And so all the good, as you were saying, is gone, and you're only remembering all the bad. What if we could just say, you know what? For that time period, it was a great match, and I'm grateful to you for learning this. And what happened is showing that there's just not a match anymore. And you're not bad, and I'm not bad. Yeah, we were in our 12%, but it's just a sign that we're not a match anymore. And I release you with love, and I do really wish you well, but we don't have to go in there and keep demonstrating why it's not working and how angry and how,
Right.
all the things you did to me and blah, 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 blah. It's just not helpful.
Wouldn't it be nice if at the end of our lives, when we look back on all the relationships we've had, we can look at them sweetly? I mean, unless the person cheated on you or was just awful to you, but assuming that it was just an incompatibility thing, as I think more often than not, most relationships end in that way.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be so great if we could look upon all those experiences sweetly and say, what an amazing full life I had, instead of looking at each one as a failure, saying, well, I failed 25 times and I never found the right person, because then you're carrying around all this negativity, resentment. And so, I mean, framing things, even when you let the person go, I think you can love unconditionally someone that you're no longer in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful, healthy thing too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great points. Great points. We're coming up to the end of the hour. And if you've just tuned in, you can get this entire conversation that we've had, straight talk around unconditional love, on my YouTube TV channel. Free subscribe, or subscribe at different levels to connect with me on Mondays. I do a Q&A after the stream is done on NBC News Radio, and we have a chat, whatever you'd like. We had a great chat last week. You can do that, or the $4.99 level is I give you every month something free from my YouTube, from my Balance Marketplace on my website, drmarissa.life. And today's Asian Oprah giveaway is actually 2 tickets to Al Stewart. And I don't know what you're doing on the 21st, James. I need a date because I haven't dipped enough of my body into the dating pool. But
It's not that cold. Come on, slide in. It's nice and warm. Come on in.
Time Passages. Do you remember that song? Time Passages. And the Year of the Cat. Anyways, he's at the Saban Theater. I'm giving away Asian Oprah giveaway tickets. First person to drmarissa.life. Just put in there Al Stewart and you'll get those tickets. It has been amazing. Final word, 30 seconds.
Yes. Don't let the semantics of unconditional love and things like that fool you. Take an inventory, I think, on how you love and whether you need to put some more conditions or protective guardrails up, or whether you need to strip them down and love with a little more openness and heart. I think it all starts with an honest, healthy inventory and making yourself full so that you can better love in that healthy, unconditional way.
Beautiful. I will say it is most important first to complete yourself. You don't need someone to complete you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, 88% fabulous, exactly the way you are. Once that is clear, then you can dip your body parts into the relationship pool. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live from my loving room, thanks to the hashtag COVID Silver Lining. My co-host, James Hawthorn on Straight Talk today. Thanks for joining us. It's all about balance, peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Tomorrow, it is The Review. So come back right after the NBC News on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. Now go and have the best day ever. Thanks, James. We'll see you next.